Mature content warning. This computer software contains content that may be unsuitable for some players, including depictions of violence, sexual conduct, abuse, rape, mental illness, murder, discriminatory language, and suicide. This work does not in any way endorse or affirm criminal acts or violations of human rights. By continuing beyond this point, the user agrees he or she or they acknowledges the above, does not find such content described above offensive nor obscene, and is requesting this content as in good mental health. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, welcome back if you're new here. I usually stream around Twitch, but today we are back again with the Hashihime of the Old Booktown. This is an ongoing series right now. Again, I'm gonna try to upload every week, though next week I'm not so sure I can upload because I'm going somewhere. So yeah, so I may skip next week, I don't know yet. There's also a whole bunch of other videos on my series that I should make, like the Space Round Bound, which is still coming. It's just that I haven't taken the time to record it yet, so yeah. I don't really remember where we left off, like usual, so let's just get into the game, shall we? Rain fell in drops from the grey sky. When I woke up, the frogman's face was right in front of me. Okita! Cute. Again? Where exactly was I now? I pushed the frogman out of the way and sat up. I looked around and realized I was lying somewhere in Ikeda's neighborhood.
私は一体どうしていたんだ。
わかりません。僕も今さっき起きたところで。
But I didn't think I had overslept. I suddenly blacked out and suddenly woken up. Then there were those strange recurring dreams.
私は
またまたって玉森さん、また時間を跳躍しちゃったんですか？
わからん。
I never knew where I was coming from or going to. The creature's behavior was changing little by little. It was becoming more and more gruesome. I walked down the street.
どこ行くんですか、玉森さん。
Tamori-san!
池田邸に戻るのだ。
やだー、怖い。
Kawaii!
うるさい、従え。
I pinched his skin and placed him on my shoulder. He made himself shrink down and eventually hid in my pocket. Nothing seems out of the ordinary at Ikeda Manor. The iron gate was shut tight, keeping any intruders out. Just as the irregular regiment had, I climbed over the iron gate and snuck into the grounds. My hand against the front door, but it was even more secure. The frogman let out a sigh or away from my pocket.
やっぱり僕たちは。
Right now, the other me was heading back to Umebachido. Minakami would be stopping by there for a visit, and Kawase would be having a smoke at the cafe.
玉森さん。
The doorknob rattled as I pulled on it. I knew I wouldn't be able to break down the door, so I headed for the parlor.
何する気ですか？
中に侵入するのだ。
Why?
侵入？
The window was thin. It looked like I could break it in one hit. The window was thin? Oh my god, I can't read. What's wrong with me? It looked like I could break it with one hit from my elbow, but I was tired of seeing blood. I took the goldfish watering can out of my pocket and filled its stomach with dirt.
まさか玉森さん、そんなむごいことを。
The goldfish watering can filled with damp dirt and became nice and heavy. I moved back from the window a little and got ready to pitch, despite never playing baseball in my life, and threw it at the glass. Went right through the glass, put my arm through the open hole, and unlocked the window from inside.
なんでこんなことするんですか？
金魚じょうろはもう一つある。別によかろう。
We're gonna have 3 in the moment.
でも、あなたは一体何を？
That had been pretty easy. I felt bad for breaking the window. So I closed the curtain so I wouldn't have to look at it. Wow, how I solve every problem. The frogman reluctantly emerged from behind the curtain, parked himself on my back again.
何してるんですか？
電話帳を探しているのだ。お、あったあった。
I pulled it from under the desk, unable to hold it any longer. I tossed it on the desktop. Turned the massive thin pages, searched for his name.
玉森さん、玉森さん、落ち着いてください。
He stopped my frantic hand with his clammy body. The frogman's eyes watered as he drew closer to me.
何をしているんですか？何を探してるんですか？僕にちゃんと説明してください。
お前は私の幻想だ。話したところで何になる？
そうです。僕はあなたの幻想です。なのに、そんなに頼りないですか？僕はあなたをお守りしたいんです。お守りする理由があるんです。
理由？
理由？
いつか僕の物語を形にすると約束してくれたじゃないですか。お守りできるよ。僕に力をください。
Salty tears dripped down from the frogman's eyes. But when I closed the phone book, he sat properly on his knees right next to it. He glanced up at my face a couple of times, then lowered his head. Shed tears on the desk. But when I stroked his chin, he purred like a cat. Okay.
あの異形を殺す。そのために、花沢に協力してもらうのだ。
Didn't we know that Hanazawa died last time? Like, come on.
花沢さんに。
I know, right?
でも、花沢さんは以前。
Was killed in an Imagitos by Eastman. But it wasn't like I hadn't learned anything from it. I grabbed the phone book again and looked for his name, starting at the back this time. Finally, the last page I turned to was a phone number written in Kawase's handwriting. Sure enough, his name was written next to it.
花沢を完全武装させる。
完全武装？
分尾拡張させるのだ。刀で歯が立たないのであれば、爆薬を用意させるまで。
協力してくださるでしょうか？
花沢の性格を忘れたか？あいつはああ見えて冒険好きだ。楽しんでついてきてくれるだろうよ。
I held my fist. Can't read. I held myself to Kawase's phone and connected to the operator. I told him the phone number, then hung up for a moment. I thought I would have to wait a while for a call back, but the phone immediately rang.
もしもし。花沢？もしもー。
The line went dead. Someone had hung up. So it must have gone through. But they hadn't said the word or even breathed it. It was creepy. I picked up the phone and had the operator connect me again. Still nothing.
玉森さんも何か言ったら。
これは意地の張り合いだ。
Suddenly I could hear the sound of breathing coming from the phone.
お名前を。
Onamayo. The voice wasn't Hanazawa's. It was definitely his name in the phone book.
玉森といえば伝わるかと。
The phone was hung up again.
実家のお電話じゃないですか？
That couldn't be it. He had a total of 7 older sisters: Ichiko, Niko, Miko, Yoko, Izuzu, Mitsumi, and Nanae. They didn't have any male servants or anything. That made it even more fishy. I grabbed the phone one last time and heard the operator connect me again. Sure enough, a reticent man picked up. This time he let out a clear sigh.
玉森と伝えてください。
お名前は。
玉森といえばわかりますから。
相手のお名前は。
相手？ちょっと切らないでください。
Other party to tell me this number was for the RV Research Institute.
梅沢八八郎です。
Umezawa Hachihachiro? That's his name?
お待ちください。
It went through. I didn't think I have to go through 2 operators to reach Hanazawa. Suddenly, a cheerful music box tune began to play. I looked up blankly, feeling both shocked and confused. I tuned it out for about 2 minutes. Eventually, the music box stopped and I heard a man clearing his voice.
俺だ。
俺だ。
花沢か？私だ。玉森だ。
玉森。
久しぶりだな。川瀬から話は聞いているぞ。
いや、
I look back at the shuttered window and finally starting to feel guilty.
何の用だ？
実はお前に話したいことがあって、ともかく会って話したいんだ。
悪いが今、緊急事態でそれどころではない。
どこにいるんだ？
自宅だ。
There was no way he was home. But I wasn't about to point out his lie.
いつなら会える？
夕方なら空いている。
じゃあ夕方に。
梅鉢堂というらしいな。お前が雇われている古書店は。
Let me just make the audio bigger.
ああ。
俺が出向こう。それじゃあ。
Sorijama. I feel like he has like an accent or something.
待ってくれ。できれば別の場所がだ。
He hung up this time. From how fast he was talking, he must have been pretty busy.
梅鉢堂で待つことになっちゃいましたね。手榴弾は。
仕方あるまい。
So I'll let Hanazawa in on everything. We have to revise my plan to subdue the monster. When I arrived at the Mebetito, I was lying flat on the floor, facing a manuscript. This whole story again. My hand didn't rest. The only time I blinked was in the moment he turned the page. He corrected his mistake stoppily, layering black ink with more black ink. When my shadow fell over the manuscript, I lifted my face, annoyed. The first thing I did before I approached me was close Umebachito's doors. Then I stepped on the manuscript, which his face is now even closer to. When I did, I slowly examined myself from head to toe with eyes full of surprise. Sure enough, he looked shocked. I slapped that face without exchanging any words with him. The cheek I touched turned clean blue and ripples ran through my entire body. Like a eye, my body turned to water. I had killed myself again. I left the glasses which had boxed away and threw the rest of the clothes outside. Afterwards, I headed back into Umebashido, glared at the door of the basement where the monster lived.
あれだけ本を積んだのに、ここから這い上がってこれるとは。
もっとたくさん本を積みましょう。
I don't think that's the choice. The frogman frantically grabbed books and threw them all over the place. I straightened them on top of the door and ended up piling them high above my head. It was pretty impressive.
遠回りしたけど、これが確実な方法ですね。
ああ、だが万が一のために私はここで見張ることにする。
万が一って、あの異形がここから出てくるってことですよね。玉森さんも殺されちゃいますよ。
案ずるな。本の山が少しでも揺れたなら、こいつの灯油をぶっかけて燃やしてやるのだ。
I lifted up the lamp by the register.
最終手段だ。
When he saw all those burned books, Minakami would probably die in a fit of rage, which should make all of this completely pointless. It was currently 2 o'clock. Panasan was coming in the evening. He'll run into Hakase-kun. Well, at that point, I just asked Hakase-kun to leave. And they'll know, besties! I mentioned it before, but I came to Umebachito a month ago. It was raining like the day then too. Come to think of it, I believe it was the start of the rainy season. Maybe it was because it was the rainy season and it continually drizzled week after week that no actual customer ever came. I figure it was because of Umejido was on the outskirts of the Old Booktown. Plus, it was located on one of the back streets. So Hakase-kun was the only one keeping this business afloat. But he had only been a regular customer since I started working there. It must have meant I had some ability to bring in
これ
customers.
はない。
No? Anyway, all of this free time made me want to go get some manuscript paper and start writing out a couple of stories. I somehow managed to suppress those thoughts and continued to stare at the pile, not even blinking. The clock suddenly chimed in, informing me it was 5. And the sun would be coming soon, so I grabbed an umbrella and went outside. I let down into its intense sneeze, then rubbed my goosebumps to warm up. The end of June was closer to summer. But I figured these cold days were going to continue like this. I could see the headlights of a car in the distance. When those lights stopped in front of me, Hanazawa got up from the back seat.
花沢
もう5年ぶりになるか。
!8 年だよ、バカ。
Taka. Hanazawa was still alive. My legs shook with the feeling that somewhere between relief and joy. I went back to the shop to hide it and slowly sat by the register. These chills were from guilt. Even when his head was cut off back then, even with his head was cut off, Hanazawa's eyes had narrowed as if the light from the lamp was too bright. Even though he was still alive, I had left him behind.
変わらぬ背丈だな。
成長しただろう、どう見ても。
俺から見たら小さいままだ。
Thanks.
そういうお前は随分変わったな。心なしか声が変わった。
声変わりくらいする。
When I laughed, Hanazawa lowered his eyes and nodded. Then he looked back and turned his gaze outside for some
お前
reason.
も早く中に入れ。
Drawn in by Hanazawa's words, umbrella popped into view. He timidly lifted the edge of the umbrella, turned his unsure gaze towards us. Hakase-kun?
博士だな。
He glanced at me before hiding under his umbrella again.
俺の同僚だ。あだ名を博士という。怪しいやつではない。
Ooh.
怪しいやつも何も、この人は梅鉢島の常連だ。
何？おい博士、なぜ黙っていた？
花沢くん、そんな怖い顔しないで。
I love him.
まあ、入ってください。
After my invitation, Hakase-kun closed his umbrella. Slowly walked up to us without making eye contact.
この店員は俺の幼馴染で、名前は
玉森です。
玉森くん、初めましてと言うべきか。僕のことはどうぞ、博士と呼んでください。
I love him. He shook my hand with fingertips. After that, a smile, twice as wide, came to his face.
それにしても狭い店内だな。
そうか？
お前は小さいから小回りが利くが、俺には少し窮屈だ。
Okay. Jeez, hold on. Sorry.
お前が大きすぎるんだ。そういえば昔からいろんなところに頭をぶつけていたよな。
Yep, sorry for my humble abode. Hanazawa. He would grab something from under his desk and hit his head when he got back up. Whenever he hiked up a mountain, he had his head on a lower branch. There were a lot of times he would do things without being mindful of his height. Stood on the tips of my toes and stretched out to pat Hanazawa on the head.
まだへこんでいる。
これは百恵と言って、皆へこんでいるものだそうだ。
I sat back down when he pat me on the head back. It's like his hand away to touch my own head. I realized it really was dented.
あれ、いつからへこんでいるのだろう。
生まれつきだ。
これの深さは知能に関係あるのか？
深いほどバカになるそう
なんと。
なんと。
だ。嘘だ。
Cute.
あ
Cute. Hakase-kun's jealous. Hakase suddenly held out Hogramaga.
これ買います。
ああ、それに関してお題はいりません。
そうですか。ありがとうございます。それじゃあ僕はこれで。
Why is he in such a hurry?
おい、
Oi. When Azawa called out to him, Hakase-kun froze in his tracks. Slowly turned around as if he had been lifted by the back of his collar.
いや、お二人の再会を邪魔しちゃ悪いと思って。僕なんか本当すみません。本当もう赤の他人が本当に。
Oh, Hakase.
何を遠慮している？
お邪魔してごめんなさい。
Azawa finally grabbed Hakase's arm when he tried to leave. He was fussing around like a prisoner of war. So I had a hard time believing they were both soldiers of the same rank.
しかし、博士が花沢の同僚とは、すごい偶然ですね。
僕は陸軍技術隊という肩書きでして、日々軍事兵器を開発しているのでさあ、肩外れる。
Cute.
博士は俺の親友だ。
親友？
No way. Was he the friend who invented his saw sword? The same friend who invented the portable lamp? That was Hakase? Hakase was a man who was nothing like me, Kawase, or Minagami. We hadn't heard from Hanazawa in 8 years. Of course, he made some close friends. So why Why did that depress me so
聞
much?
け。用事とは何だ？
Look at Hakase-kun. He gasped and hid behind a bookshelf.
僕はそこで時間を潰してますので、どうぞお気になさらず。
Dozo.
だそうだ。
花沢に殺してもらいたい相手がいる。
Ooh, we're just getting into it. My eyes met Hakase-kun through the bookshelf. He frantically lowered his eye. Hanazawa wasn't surprised at all, despite the request being directed right at him.
私は今、そいつを地下室に閉じ込めている。花沢には明日にでもそいつを。
明日と言わず、今から言ってやろう。その幻覚、俺が叩き切ってやる。
Wow. Hanazawa didn't believe us on the start, huh?
お前はそう言って殺されたのだ。流行らないでくれ。これはあの頃と違う。冗談じゃ。
This time Hanazawa's eyes opened wide.
信じてくれるなら私の話を聞いてくれ。私は3日後の世界から来た。本当はすでに私はお前と会っている。8年ぶりなんて嘘だ。
何？
Nani?
信じられない話だろう。私も夢だと思ってたし、そう思いたかった。でも、
This is not good though. We know how sick Hanazawa and Hakase-kun is, and the Hashihime thing. Oh god, I don't like that him telling them
お
this.
前こそ流行るな。ちゃんと聞く。
Chanto Kiku. I think he's like, I don't know, like an accent or something. But yeah, I don't like this.
ありがとう。
His words made my shoulder relax.
私はお前から恩師の銀時計をもらった。陸軍科学研究所の第3課地学的事項研究に携わっていると教えてくれた。
Hakase-kun walked back and forth from the bookshelf to bookshelf. He was trying to act like he wasn't listening, but he clearly was. I watched him like he was a fly, but Hanazawa obstructed my view.
川瀬から聞いたのか。
違う。本当にお前の口から聞いたんだ。
If it refused me now, my plan would come to a halt. But I was so scared I lowered my gaze. Hakase-kun took out some books and picked at us through the bookshelf.
僕は玉森くんのことを信じます。
Thanks, Hakase-kun. Appreciate you.
信じてくれるんですか？
前例がありますから。ですからこの僕にも詳しくお聞かせ願えませんか？
Yes, include me, please. I told Hakase and Hanazawa about everything that had happened until now. He didn't know Minakami, he didn't know Kawase, but Hakase-kun listened intently to my story. But these people were strangers to him. When he finished listening to this sequence of events, Hakase-kun looked at me with an unusually serious expression.
つまり君は自分の意思と関係なく過去へと跳躍し、そしてたどり着いた世界でもさらに跳躍し、さらに今この世界にいると。
I love Hakase-kun.
そうです。
そうです。
それではまずは君の状況を整理しましょう。一剣、スクリーンを持ってきておくれ。
Wow, this is actually the same, which is in different location. He hadn't spoken very loudly, but the one-eyed maid Hitosuruki-san came in from the outside. She pulled out a pure white sheet of paper from a tube and spread it out gently, and handed the other end to Hanazawa.
俺が持つのか。
花沢くん、ピンと張ってくださいね。
Pin to Hakase ne? Hakase-kun began to write on what he called a screen. It was a whiteboard, totally different from a simple blackboard.
君が最初にいた世界を異の世界とし、
それ何なんですか？
磁性粉末を利用した板です。こうして磁石型の鉛筆を近づけると黒い磁性粉末が浮き上がって文字となり、裏で磁石を当てると正面の文字が消える仕組みです。
なかなか面白い。
では話を戻します。君が最初にいた世界を異の世界とし、次に跳躍した世界をロ、さらに跳躍した世界をハ。まず異の世界から君はロの世界へと行き、君は君に出会った。異の時点で君はもう一人の自分には出会っていない。 なのにロの世界で君は君に出会っている。
私もそれについて疑問に思っていた。
君は無意識のうちにこの世界に並行する時間軸があることを証明したんです。
Parallel worlds. Huh. From assuming my heart race had just been introduced.
そしてイの君はロの世界を経由し、さらに歯の世界へと跳躍した。
そういうことです。
ここで疑問が生じるな。
はい。歯の世界でイの君は一体どこへ行ったのでしょう。
AU in World C Go. Oh, because there's supposed to be 3? I don't get it.
Huh?
I still don't get it. In the last season, I didn't get it. I didn't get it again in season 2. Like, why is there 2 of us? I was the only one who didn't understand?
結論から言うと、歯の世界はロの世界を内包していません。もし内包していたのなら、この歯の世界にはイの君とロを経由した経験のあるイの君が三重に存在しているはずなのです。
So basically what you're saying is, supposedly, when I go to A to B, then B become A technically for the other Tamamori. So he should have jumped as well to C. But we made him disappear, right? We know where he went. he turned to water.
ですがお話を伺う限り、君がこの歯の世界で出会ったのは自分一人。しかもその自分の知識はロの経験がないイの君だった。
それは
つまり歯と2の世界など存在しないのです。
So drew large X over
こ
them.
こまでをもう一度ご説明しましょうか。
So it's just A, B, B became A, and then A became B. What?
大丈夫です。続けてください。
はい。
Yeah.
君は今ロの世界を3度繰り返しているということです。
なんだか余計にごっちゃになりました。
ごめんなさい。説明が下手でごめんなさい。
No, you did great, honey.
つまりと散々言わせてもらうが、つまり
Unless I was spoke quietly.
玉森は今ロの世界を3度も繰り返しているということだな。
そうです。僕が今言った通りですよ。
わかった。だがしかし玉森が最初に跳躍したロの世界がなかったことになったとは思えない。現に玉森はロへ飛び歯へ飛んだ意識があるのだからな。
What's move?
今玉森くんが体験しているこの世界を2とはせずロの3と称しましょうか。最初に跳躍した世界をロの1としましょう。
Okay.
つまり平行世界は広がっているというわけか。
The two men turned their eyes towards me. I looked away and bit my lip.
一剣下がってくれて構わないよ。
承知しました。
Hanasawa crudely rolled up the screen for Hitotsurugi-san. By the way, he roughly stuffed it into the large tube. It was hard to believe he was the son of a doctor. Professor and Hitotsurugi watched him nervously, but at the same time, they seemed to have given up.
それで玉森くん、時間跳躍の原因に何か心当たりはありませんか？
Don't tell them! Don't tell them! They're insane! Don't tell them! He said any idea, but I couldn't think of any particular thing right off the bat. The only thing that came to mind were thoughts about 3 faces. First, I tried to save Kawase and Minakami, but the face that came to mind before either of them was...
怪人に追いかけられました。
恐怖が原因か。
おそらくそのどちらでもないと思います。継続した気持ちではなく、もっと瞬間的な違和感に答えはあるはずです。
Momentary discomfort, it said, but when I tried to remember, I couldn't pin anything down. All I could say for certain was that whenever I was chased by that monster, I would jump through time.
何か思い出しましたか？
In the middle of a rainy night, I couldn't see a thing, could barely breathe. During those incredible chills of my fear of imminent death, I tripped and fell.
水たまりに落ちました。すごく深い水たまりだったんです。あっと思った時には転んで、気づいたら朝でした。 ただ不思議なのは、靴も服も濡れていなくて。
水、雨、あ、きっとそれですよ。
それですよ。
しかしだな、神保町は舗装が進んでいない。水たまりなんてそこら中にあるぞ。
私はいつも水たまりを避けて歩いていた。靴を汚さぬようにと。怪人に追いかけられた時、辺りは真っ暗で何も見えなかったから、多分不用意に。
So I've stepped into an area where there happened to be no drainage on the street. But I've been watching my feet in the first place when I jumped through the town in front of the Yokinama. But puddles? I'll be cracking up if this were anyone else but me. Didn't seem like something three mature men would be talking with such serious look on their faces. And yet, the moment I was so overcome with emotion, I was shaking. But
私はこの数日間を繰り返して近しい未来を見てきた。川瀬がタバコを吸う時間も、水上が梅干し堂に来る時間も変わらなかった。
I pulled the goldfish watering can from my pocket.
あ
I love this one. Okay, so you can let out an almost agonizing shriek as she's like go about.
それに、違う行動をとっても結局似たような結果を得てしまう。この金魚じょうろはもう2度もらっている。
未来の僕はもうそんなところまで進んで。
でも、怪人の行動だけは読めないんです。
He behaved as if he could read my thoughts. Jeez, I can't read. So clearly, even now he was wandering restlessly beneath my feet.
かような男。やはり生かしておくわけにはいかん。
けど花沢、
切ってダメなら撃てばよいのですよ。
Ooh. Hakase said, pulling out a gun from his breast pocket. Let's go, my man. They're ever so ready.
博士も手伝ってくれるのですか？
当たり前じゃないですか。君は僕の大切な友達なんですから。
I love him. I guess showing him the goldfish watering can was a good thing. There was absolutely no way I could let him know. I had someone of them with dirt and throw it as hard as I could.
いざ地下へと言いたいところだが、なんだこの本の山は。
これは
大の男にここまでさせる。それだけ恐ろしい存在ということか。
Hanazawa got to work putting the books away, not once complaining. Hakase-kun wordlessly jumped in, and so I just silently did the same. So it was a strange relationship it had. If it weren't for the preacher, Hakase-kun and I probably wouldn't have deepened our friendship so easily. Even though I was fine with just exchanging pointless niceties, Hanazawa formed a bridge between us, so all three of us had become friends, I guess. But at this very moment, our minds were occupied with figuring out how we would kill the thing hiding right beneath us. The last book, the white-haired boy, was cleared away. Hanazawa put his hand on the entrance. Surprisingly, the door opened without any resistance. Something felt slightly off. Of course, Hanazawa and Hakase-kun didn't seem to feel anything. Their faces tensed up once they looked beyond the door. At least 10 feet deep, it was darkness that could possibly become our graves. They seemed to finally realize that this wasn't an ordinary basement. Hanazawa grabbed the stool from behind the register and threw it to the basement. Again, he readily jumped down. He pulled out the portable lamp from his pocket. The bright light washed over us.
誰かランプを持ってきてくれ。この光じゃ細すぎる。
ええ。
Hakase-kun gave his simple reply and gladly went down into the basement.
肌寒いですね。
Samui desu ne. We should bring up freaking Heta Tsurugi. That girl is freaking martial artist.
それにこの異臭は。
玉森くんも降りてきて案内してください。
Hanazawa held the portable lamp in his mouth and held out his hand towards me. Oh, thank you. I placed one foot at a time into his hands and slowly dropped down into the hole. I thought I'll be more careful this time, but my hand slipped again and Hanazawa easily caught me in his arms and set me down gently. Aww, I love that.
面目ない。
Menbokunai.
しかしなんだここは。
Hakase-kun handed me the lamp, then held up his gun with both hands. Hanazawa lowered his hands before walking alone in the darkness.
その怪人とやら長くここに閉ざされていたのだろうな。幻覚ではない。俺にもはっきりこの爪痕が見える。
Hanazawa touched the scratches on the stone wall. Hakase-kun brought his face closer to inspect the strange
で
phenomenon.
すがこれはあがいてつけた傷跡というより爪研ぎの跡のように思えますね。
だとしたら獣だな。
Kemonodana. Hakase-kun looked confused. He stared at the stone wall until I went ahead of the lamp. So turning two corners, the door we were looking for was right in front of us. If I hadn't shown them the way, they'd probably have figured it out from the darkness that seemed to be deepening.
行くぞ。
Ikuza. I couldn't help but grab his arm. I was definitely still feeling the fear from back then.
花沢くんたちは下がっていてください。僕が行きますよ。
Oh, Hakase-kun. He wants to play the freaking hero for Tamamori.
博士、
Hakase. He slipped by us and stood in front of the door. Hanazawa gently covered my ears when Hakase-kun aimed his gun. One shot, two shots. He shot the hinges and the doorknob one after the other. He kicked down the damaged door and went into the darkness on his own. I tightly gripped the lamp and followed close behind him. I looked cautiously around the darkness as I swung the lamp around dramatically.
どこかに隠れているはずです。一発で仕留めてください。
ええ、お任せください。
Wasate-kudasai. The moment that I blinked, I saw the gruesome scene from before. The stench mixed with the smell of blood that was still stuck in my nose. Hanazawa died here. Before he could even touch the phantom, before he could feel any fear, Hanazawa had been killed right here. And now I felt towards the monster was anger. Make sure that got through to him as soon as we unmasked him. But
あれ、
we walked around the entire room once. Hanazawa slowly swung the portable lamp from behind the
気
bookshelf.
配もなければ姿もないな。もぬけの殻だ。
そんなはずないのだ。
I snatched the gun from Hakase-kun and rushed back into the darkness. And we beat back away from the light of the lamp, so this time I plunged forward and fumbled around the
玉森くん
darkness.
お気をつけて。
Why wasn't he here? I was already used to the stench filling my lungs and no longer felt afraid of this darkness. Did that make us the weird ones here?
玉森くん。
There was no way. My shoulder fell when I saw Hakase-kun's blank face. Hanazawa came up to me and took the gun from my hand. I couldn't bear the immensely gentle touch.
そんな気はしていた。怪人はここにはいないと。
本当なのだ。本当に怪人は、異形はいるのだ。幻覚なんかじゃないんだ、花沢。
Hanazawa!
お前が言ったのだろう。怪人の行動だけは読めないと。
Hakase-kun nodded slightly.
ですから逆に考えられませんか？君に怪人の行動が読めないのではなく、怪人が君の行動を読んでいると。え？その怪人は僕たちがここに来ることを読んでいたのでは？
So he'd run away? Even if he could read my thoughts, I had a hard time believing the creature thought we were a threat.
確かに言えるのは、ここに怪人がいないということです。
しかし、いつの間に。
He must have already been gone when I piled on those books. So coming here was a waste of time. If I was even aware of what I was doing, I'd run the path we'd taken. Tried getting back to the surface, but I kicked the stool under me again and fell. Hanazawa held his hand out to me.
すまん。
Suman.
何にせき立てられている。
He doesn't use an umbrella. He wears a weird mask. As soon as you spot him, he vanishes. The rumor about the giant started a month ago. In the beginning, he was on the street corners at night. There have been rumors he tried to get into Toyokinama too. Every time I happened to come across this creature, it was always night. He was definitely only active at night.
川瀬が危ない。
Hanazawa quietly lowered his eyes, then he lifted me up hard. Afterward, we left Umebachido and rode in Hakase's car. It didn't matter how much we rushed, it wasn't like we could go any faster. All I could do was put my hands together and pray.
なあ、花沢。またもしもの場合があるかもしれない。私の読みを一つ聞いてくれるか？
ああ。
それは。
What is it? Tell me. As soon as we stopped at Ikeda Manor, each of us in the car, not caring about how I looked, Nakase-kun immediately came after me and held his umbrella out for me. Thanks, babe. I stared blankly at the scene in front of me, my hand still grasping at the iron gate.
燦然と輝いていますね。
The parlor curtain was shut tight, but a faint light leaked from the gaps. I tried shaking the iron gate again, but didn't seem like the lock would come off that easily. Unless I rang the doorbell, the parlor curtain shook and Kawase's face came into view.
無事だったようだ
Thank goodness Kawase was safe. But I couldn't shake this anxiety. Kawase came up to us with an annoyed look on his face. As soon as he was in front of the iron gate, he greeted our strange group, me, Hanazawa, and a man he didn't know with a shocked look on his face. なんなの君たち。
門を開けてくれないか？
だからなんで君と花沢が一緒にいるの？
偶然だ。それよりお前に話したいことがあるのだ。だから中に入れてくれ。
嫌だね。
嫌だ。
待て、川瀬。
Kawase stopped in his tracks. Turning around slightly to look at Hanzawa, he glared at Hakase-kun.
玉森君は入れてやらないこともないけど、あんたは帰ってくれ。
Kawase is jolly!
っていうか、どの面下げてきたつもり？
Ooh, how? He knows? Hakase-kun tilted his head as if to dodge Kawase's sharp words. Kawase came up to the gate again and stopped right in front of him.
川瀬君、そんなに僕が嫌いですか？
嫌いですか? Oh, Hakase! I love it when he goes into crazy mode. Kawase kicked the gate.
帰って。
帰る。
川瀬、穏便に穏便に。
おんみにおんみに。
君とこいつはどんな関係なの？
博士は店の常連だ。ここに来るまでにちょっと足を借りただけだ。
Kawase took his keys from his pocket, opened the gate slightly, grabbed my arm, and pulled me through the gap. Then he immediately closed it.
悪いけど、花沢はそいつを連れて帰ってくれる。じゃあね。
June. Oh, yes, me. Possessive.
川瀬。
I was stuck between a dragon and a tiger. Even though I was trying to restrain the dragon, the scales over his body were standing on end. I was getting nervous between the two of them. Surprisingly, a smile came to the tiger's face.
僕がお貸ししたウーマン・イン・グレー読んでくれましたか？読み終わったら玉森くんにまた貸ししてくださるとありがたい。今度は4人で楽しく語り合いましょう。
A woman in gay. Ooh, I guess it's English.
クソくらいだよ。
Kawase-kun turned to Hakase. Kawase returned Hakase's smile with a spite-filled grin. Eat shit. I love it. As soon as we went to the mansion, Kawase's fake smile disappeared. He immediately put a cigarette in his mouth and came up to me. He took the matchbox from him and kept slipping it from my hands. Someone managed to light the head of the match and brought it close to his mouth. Cigarette smoke gently wafted up. Clicked his tongue in annoyance when it made me suddenly sneeze. 聞いたね。
すまんすまん。
どこで会ったの？
え？
花沢とはどこで会ったの？
たまたまだ。ここに来る途中、花沢に声をかけられてな。お前は3ヶ月も前に再会していたらしいな。黙っていたなんて水臭いぞ。
黙らざるを得なかったんだよ。
え？
Kawase walked down the hall.
それってどういう意味だ？なあ、川瀬。
なあ、Kawase.
俺は今不機嫌なんだ。あんまりわめかないでくれる？
I want to know the tea though. Why do they have bad blood? Kawase opened the door of the parlor. He let me go in first and made me look at the tragic scene inside.
帰ってきたらこのありさまだ。
Wow.
ひどいな。
ひどいな。
おかげで今日は寝ずの番だ。
警察には。
言わないよ。強盗犯の正体は分かってるからね。
The kids. He assumed it was the kids. Kawase kicked the goldfish watering can stuffed with dirt. He thought he was Hakase. Yes. Kawase kicked the goldfish watering can stuffed with dirt. He had probably kicked it a few times. His face was dented, shedding muddy tears. He looked away from those eyes full of resentment towards me and muttered, "Terrible," again.
あいつによく似た女中がいるでしょ。あいつが押し入ったに違いないんだよ。
しかし何のために。
Was the one who had broken in. Plus, the goldfish watering can was mine, so.
さあ忘れ物でも探してたんじゃない。
Kawase spun his prescriptory delusions. I wasn't such an awful person that I'd argue with him about it with a straight face. I whistled innocently and sat in my usual chair.
しかしカーズも博士の知り合いとはな。お前も金魚上炉をもらったのか。
I pulled the goldfish watering can from my pocket and placed it on the table. With a nonchalant look on his face, Kawase stepped on it.
おい、物に罪はないだろう。
Probably because of all the anger coursing through him, the pressure instantly flattened it. It's no longer breathing. Yet, as if to deliver the final blow, Kawase kicked the goldfish away, removing it from my sight. Scary part was, even though that some had the violence of a steel crusher, Kawase never took his eyes off me.
ねえ、玉森君。
え、なあ。
Oh.
二度とあいつに関わらないでくれる。
Ooh, why?
この俺とたかが常連。どっちが大事？
Of course it's you, babes.
なんだその問いは。お前に決まってるだろう。
I wasn't sure what Kawase wanted out of that question. It was clearly conveying that he didn't feel comfortable around Hakase-kun, but also let out a short sigh, surrounding himself in cigarette smoke. Coughs into the chair behind him, casts his gaze nowhere in particular. He crossed his legs in annoyance, and made me hesitate to say anything to him.
俺のこと好き？
好きです。
答えて。
What are you even talking about? He was making me tense up. The way he was staring at me with a serious look in his eyes that he hadn't changed from earlier.
早く答えて。
早く答えて。好き。
好きって。まあ、好きだぞ。
好きだぞ。
まあって何？
好きだ。
好きだ。
じゃあさ、今現在君の好きな相手が部屋を汚されて困って気抜けて不機嫌なわけだけど、どうする？
どうするの？ What are you going to do? Don't tell me he wants me to clean up for him. Actually, I was starting to get the feeling he was bluntly pointing out that he knew I was the culprit. A guilty conscience is a terrible thing to have.
開き直るのも良くないですよ。玉森さんが散らかしたんですし、玉森さんが片付けるべきです。
わかってる。
I picked up the two goldfish watering cans.
ゴミ箱はどこだ？
台所。生ゴミの中に入れておいて。あ、やっぱり俺も行く。コーヒーでも。
コーヒーでも。
いいから座ってろ。
珍しいね。
Kawase recrossed his legs. I let out a sigh of relief and left the parlor. Tiptoed past the kitchen and headed for the front door. Without making a sound, I opened it the crack and peeked out the lawn.
花蔵は？
He's waiting! As soon as I called his name, he popped his face from behind the door where he was hiding.
やっぱりいてくれたか。
車中の会話を忘れたか。
奴は私と水上の命も狙っている。私の動向が読めるなら、私たちが池田邸に行くことも読めているはずだ。
つまり、怪人は池田邸でお前を待ち構えていると。
ああ、 奴は必ず私の前に現れる。守ってくれ。
夜明けまでここにいてやる。
Oh, it's such a sweetie.
立花氏もなんだ。早く中に入れ。
俺は外で待機する。
どうして？
抜刀したまま立っていれば、怪人が警戒して現れない可能性もある。怪人は確実に仕留める。悪いが、お前と川瀬には怪人をおびき出すおとりになってもらうぞ。
そういうことか。わかった。信じてるからな。何かあったらすぐに駆けつけてくれよ。
案ずるな。
Anzruna. Hanzo put on his hood and was about to slip into the rainy night. I grabbed his hand to hold him back, then quickly brought my face closer to his.
なんだ。
なんだ。
全くもって私事なのだが、お前、どうして川瀬に博士を会わせたんだ？親友だと紹介したのか？
ああ。それがどうした？
いや、なんでもない。
なんでもない。
言いたいことがあるなら何か言え。
What a thick-headed man. If I'd said anything more, he'd probably end up saying I was being petty. Let go of his hand, pushed his chest. This time Hanazawa disappeared into the rainy night. Slowly closed the door on the other side like Kawase had done earlier. Hanazawa had changed. Originally, I told him to look like someone who was barely able to escape death and poor Arthur. But now I want to rephrase that as he looked someone who could make Chulan Chung surrender with just one look. In short, his face was full of confidence. As long as Hanazawa was here, we had the strength of 100 men. Ew. Still sour, Kawase ignored me when I came back to the parlor.
ガラス片はどうする？
そっちはいい。俺が後でやるから。それより金魚じょうろはちゃんと捨ててくれた？
ああ、生ゴミの奥の奥にな。
その手は洗った？
もちろんだ。家具か？
Kawase suddenly ignored my obvious joke. Seemed to be focusing on the sound of the rain.
俺に話したいことって何なの？
Nothing really. Well, it wasn't like I could tell him that.
久しぶりに花沢にも会えたからな。4人で話せたらと思ったのだ。
4人って何？あの氷川とかいう男も交えて。
違う、4人目は水上だ。
それも結構嫌だな。君と2人でいるのが一番気楽でいいや。
Ooh.
だいぶ弱ってるな。
当たり前でしょ。部屋こんなにされて元気になんかなれるかよ。同情するなら慰めて。
How?
何？
何？
気持ち悪い。
気持ち悪い。
それが弱ってるやつに言うセリフ？
だってお前、自分が不機嫌な時はいつも他人をバカにして楽しんでるじゃないか。なのに私に助けを求めようとは。
俺を何だと思ってるの？
何よ今さら。悪魔に決まっているだろう。
悪魔で言われたよ。
じゃあ君はその悪魔のおもちゃにされる覚悟があってここにいるわけだ。
Yes.
悪いけど今はそんな気力もなくてね。
The cold wind blew in from the broken window, washed the curtain flutter. Then remember Hanazawa was behind it.
やっぱり花沢を呼び戻そうか。私なんかに慰められるより花沢の言葉の方がよっぽど効くだろう。
花沢にはこれ以上迷惑はかけられない。今日のことも黙っててくれ。
どんと甘えればいいのだ。お前も花沢の弟分であろ
う。
甘える？そんなことできるわけないでしょ。
かせ。
まさか忘れたわけじゃないでしょ。俺と花沢がどんな関係なのか。
Eh? The lights in the room went out. Totally not expecting that, Kawase gasped and quickly uncrossed his legs. He approached the window and opened the curtain. The faint rain of secured moonlight came in. Whether it was from the lightning strike or not, this was definitely a sign the monster was coming! The arrival of a menacing atmosphere was urging me on whether I wanted to or not. There's only one entrance. I stood up to block Kawase and peered sharply at the parlor door. Footsteps ran by above my head.
強盗。
強盗犯なんかいやしない。散らかしたのは私だ。
どさくさに紛れて何言ってんの？
何言ってんの？
これより来るのも強盗ではない。
は？
Huh? The footsteps stopped in front of the door. Shook slightly. It seemed to be shaking even more. Shaking calmed down when the monster realized he was locked. It felt us some time. I ran to the window and stuck my head out. I was about to call Hanazawa's name, but I couldn't find him. No way. It's a thunderclap like boom. That the door broke in, something inhuman appeared. The scene I saw when I looked back was so terrifying I could no longer keep my cool.
川瀬、逃げろ。
誰？
Come on, there's no time to question him! Go! The monster was watching me. Watch him back. He approached Kawase while we stared at each other. He looked down at Kawase.
川瀬、逃げ。
The monster grabbed Kawase's neck and lifted him up as easily as picking a flower. Kawase's legs swung pathetically in the air.
やめろ。やめてくれ。
One finger in his right hand loosened, and the finger ducked back into Kawase's neck. Finger in his left hand loosened. He seemed to be reluctant to kill. If you're still alive, jump through that window, shoot the monster, and save Kawase.
あなたは。
Please, Hanazawa. You're the only one who can save him. The monster let go of Kawase, fell to his knees in front of him and grabbed his neck with both hands. Slowly began to twist. Whatever was barely managing to keep 9 feet snapped, and I sank to my knees. The monster looked at me. As he twisted Kawase's neck, he watched me as he was keeping an eye on his target. It snapped, something burst, and fresh blood gushed out. No, Kawase, go! The monster picked Kawase's head from the puddle of blood. No, no, please. I don't want to see any of this. This time he walked towards me.
許さん。貴様など。貴様など。あなたは。
He took long strides and lifted his right leg over my head. So now that he had hit the wall, he easily lifted his left leg. He left the room through the window. That seems black hair up until now. Look into his eyes. I had heard a aloof voice from his sarcastic mouth. I knew it was him. How could I call this love of flesh
川
Kawase?
瀬は死んだか？
As I stepped over the windowsill, swiftly jumped down into the room. His rain dark mantle fell to the floor, revealing his cocky figure. He fell to one knee next to Kawase and looked at his exposed innards. No idea what was he thinking when he lowered his eyes and turned towards me.
なんで出てきてくれなかったんだ。なあ、花沢。
He grabbed my arm and forced me up, grabbed me by the waist and threw me outside.
どうやらお前の力は本物のようだな。
I knew he was a dick. I knew he was a dick. Oh god, I hate this man. Ugh. He grabbed my wrist this time, forced me to walk. I shook his hand off when he reached the middle of the yard. Heavy rain fiercely blew between
同
us.
行を願う。
Right, I had no idea that the phantom could come for me again. I need to get away from here. Why did Hanazawa seem so scary to me? What was this disgust I was feeling? He didn't... Touched my head, took a couple steps back.
待って。
行くぞ。
行くぞ。
だから待てって。どういうことだよ。
Wasn't going to ignore what he said earlier.
まさか試したのか。
ああ。
冗談じゃないって言っただろ。嘘じゃない、夢じゃないって。
The monster could read my mind. He only showed up around me. He only took the last of those around me.
でも、お前も実際見ただろ。人影。
ああ。
だったら。
Why didn't you come?
重要なのは怪人が存在するか否かではない。お前に未来がわかるか否かということだ。
This freaking motherfucking military man, I hate him! I couldn't understand what he was saying, so my words must have not been reaching him either. As soon as I tried to run away, he grabbed my arm again. Oh god, I remember all this schmo. The amount of hatred I have for love.
話せ
Hanase!
お前なんかに頼った私がバカだった。この人でなしめ
川瀬を見殺しにしたのはお前も同じだろう。
You don't get it at all, Hanazawa. You have no idea how much Kawase adored you like a brother. You have no idea how much he relied on you.
川瀬を救えるのお前しかいないんだよ。
If you could understand how Kawase felt, then there was no way he could understand how I felt.
お前は川瀬を踏みにじった。
お前に力があればお前が川瀬を守っただろう。恨むなら己の無力ではないか。
We're trying, bitch! We're getting you! Was trying to help Kawase! That was exactly what I was doing.
お前は花沢じゃない。私たちの花沢はそんなことは言わん。
なぜ鳩が皆オリーブを加えなければならんのだ。
What was he talking
な
about?
ぜ先入観で物事を捉える。川瀬が俺に助けてくれと言ったか。俺でなければダメだと。それこそ全部お前の妄想だ。
All of them are dicks. Kawase grew up with an abusive father. Hanazawa, who was the son of the village doctor, devoted himself to looking after Kawase. Comb his hair, he neatly fixed his clothes, pat him on the head, supported Kawase like an older brother. There's no way someone could do all that for Kawase and not care for him. Yet,
なんでそんなことが言えるのだ。消えろ。
Hiro.
お前が死ねばよかったのだ。
The hand gripping my arm tightened. When I shoved his chest with my other hand, he let me go a lot more easily than I thought he would. His eyes wavered. I didn't want to hear anymore. I could no longer believe anything he said. I wouldn't rely on him anymore. The moment I screamed that inside my mind. Hanazawa's body floated in midair as if it had been always stabbed by the collar. As much as I don't support him dying. In this timeline, this guy's a dick. Get him away from me. Thank you. I forgot your name, but thank you, Shiro-kun. The man in the dome mask was standing behind him. He cropped the bones in Hanazawa's neck as he dug his finger into his Adam apple. Oh god, ugh. His fingers pierced the skin, the bright blood staining the monster's nails. Hanazawa didn't draw his sword or pull out his gun. Nothing more than to breathe, his hand wrapped around the monster's fingers. His hands hung down lifelessly. Once the monster realized he was dead, he threw his body down by his feet. He stared at his blood-covered hands, shook them off. Hid under his hood was but slid behind the curtain of the night.
私は殺さないのか。殺せよ。
Kawase. Oh.
殺してくれよ。
I approached the monster unarmed. He shook his mask left and right as he withdrew in panic. No, my child! No, as much as he's scary, we know what's up, and I just feel so bad towards this child. This time he faded into the darkness. The monster let go of Kawase, then fell to his knees in front of him and grabbed his neck with both hands. The sound of harsh winds and rains, every sound tormenting me, was cut off. The heavy gate shut out my thoughts. It was like he was playing a game of Go by myself. I play the black piece, then turn on the board, play the white piece, then turn the board again. It's like one of me cornering was rather than myself.
怪人は私自身なのかもしれない。
And even after people around me. Oh my god, Tamamori in this freaking episode is like calculating. And he actually got it. Technically, he's not you, but his mastermind is. The big monster had been born from the hatred I felt towards them in my heart. And he confused fantasy and reality. How many times I don't remember Kawase saying that?
やはりおかしいのは、だからきっと、やり直せる。
I climb up the gate to stand, then immediately spot a shallow puddle right next to me. This was all hallucination. I should be able to go back as many times as I wanted. Gently dip my toes in. The water surface rippled a pale blue and swallowed my foot up to the ankle. It was a freezing cold. It was actually only about 3 inches deep. So where exactly was my foot going? Well, could have been anywhere within 6 realms. I didn't care.
やり直せる。
Go boy! I told myself while praying I reach a world better than this one. Ooh! When I suddenly looked around, I was on the streetcar. Passenger got off, leaving a seat open. As soon as I hurriedly sat down, the car filled up. The next thing I knew, Kawase was sitting in the seat closest to the front. He didn't seem to notice me. He's probably heading to the cafe by Camden Bridge again. He seemed to be reading a reference book with a serious look on his face. Calmly turned the page, scribbled on it with a fountain pen. Eventually, the streetcar stopped, and an elderly woman got on. Kawase immediately stood up and turned away. It didn't matter if it was an old woman, a child, or an adult. He would give up his seat without a second thought. If there was some competition, it felt like I had lost somehow. So I also stood up from my seat and approached him.
川瀬。
うわ、玉森君。
Damn, I'm like,
うわってなんだうわって。これからカフェに行くんだろ。
そうだけど。
he said, closing his book, putting it in his pocket.
どうした？私を気にせず受験勉強を続けろ。
気が散るんだよ、君といると。
Ooh, why?
で、君は何しに行くの？
To your heart.
もちろん私もジャズを聴きながら勉強をするためだ。
その脇に抱えてる封筒は何？原稿用紙だと思うけど。
Bullseye. Kawase suddenly smiled.
まあいいんじゃない。俺さ、玉森くんが原稿に向かってる姿、結構好きだよ。
I hate this.
こんなくだらないことにも真剣になれる人がいるんだなーって。
Thanks.
褒めてるのか？
褒めてるか？
褒めてるよ。俺にしては珍しくね。俺と同じ気持ちになりたいなら、アリを観察してみなよ。
それって、私が頑張り屋ということか？アリはちょこまかと働き者だからな。
君ってやつは。まあ、いいか。
いいか。4. It had just begun to rain. It fell in drops from the gray sky. I stood up along the fence and looked at the still dry caterpillar. And come back to this time again. When I searched my pocket, the goldfish watering cans, the iron silver pocket watch, and dog manga were all gone. I really had lost any proof I had come from the future.
なくなったのはそれだけじゃありませんよ。自慢のメガネをなくしてます。
I easily jumped over the gate and walked through the streetcar.
玉森さん、無視しないでくださいよ。
As soon as I got on the streetcar, I noticed the dirt on my shoes. I tried rubbing them together, but I couldn't get it off. I've been trying to keep them clean while I was walking. That's probably why I didn't realize they had gotten like this. Same way with my life.
綺麗に生きてるつもりだったんですか？ごめんなさい。
ごめんなさい. I looked up and stared out the window. The streetcar crossed the middle of Suido Bridge and was now entering Jimbocho. The color of the rain grew darker, the color of the town quietly faded. Within that landscape was the flicker of a familiar blue umbrella. I got off at the Jimbocho, and instead of walking to Umebachi though, caught a glimpse of that umbrella from earlier and followed it to the alley. He seemed to be in deep sleep under a large blue umbrella. Stopped my foot right in front of him. 50 cents stuffed in my shoe.
なあ少年。
Shonen.
加藤ゲータ左衛門君という少年を知っているか？
ああ、
は
実はな、君があの三千堂の少年と分かって、私はここへ来たのだ。加藤君を私に会わせてほしい。
Kuroko silently pulled out the 50 cent he stuffed into his pocket. I shoved it back into my shoe without showing a shred of
帰
reluctance.
れ。
Hide. What a terrible glare. You'd think it was coming from a stubborn old man. It wasn't like I was asking for Kato-kun hand in marriage or anything.
帝大生さんのことで話がある。といえば、話は早いか？勘の鋭い君なら、私が何者かもうわかろ
帝大生の知り合いの浪人生。
Raninse. I grabbed the 50 cent Kudokun had shoved in my shoe and handed that back to him. Kudokun ripped it out of my hand and still glaring sharply at me.
まずはてめえの汚え靴をどうにかしてからだ。客は客だからな。
Thanks.
う。ああ、見違えるようにしてくれ。
玉森さん、梅鉢堂に戻らなくていいんですか？地下室の怪人をどうにかしないと。ねえ、さっきからどうして無視するんですか？
After that, I followed Kudokun to the sunset though. Of course, Kato-kun and I weren't acquainted in this world, but Naoshi-kun must have told them about a man like me. Kato-kun called me Tama-san as soon as he saw me. Then I cleared up the misunderstanding Kato-kun had come to know. I was going to tell him the truth, that Ikeda-san was actually a perverted, lecherous old man. That Kawase had killed him to protect Kato-kun. That might cast even darker shadow in his already dim future. So I did my best as a writer to tell him a version of the truth that would be easy for someone so innocent to understand.
というわけなのだ。
After listening to the whole story, Kato-kun head hung even lower. And Toba-kun gently placed his hand on him. Kato-kun shut up fast enough to knock him over. He stood right in front of me and glared.
嘘だ池田さんがそんな変態なわけない。
So Whew, he was coming right out of it. I was heavily shocked, but I faced him as calmly as I could.
池田さんは姦淫罪で捕まった。これが真実だ。受け入れなさい。
信じたくない。鎌倉の刑務所にいるんですよね。鎌倉に行けば会えるんですよね。
だが、子供の足では少々遠いな。お金もかかるな。その切符代があれば、三千堂のみんなで活動に行った方が有意義だな。
Kato-kun burst into tears and ran back into the back room. Toba-kun immediately went after him, leaving only me and Kudo-kun. He may have been rubbing salt in his wounds, but it was better than him getting hurt for any more needless investigations.
それじゃあな、工藤君。
Kudo-kun.
てめえの話、やっぱり信じられねえ。
信じられねえ。
信じたくないからだろう。そういう意味では、私も信じられないよ。ともかく、帝大生の周囲を嗅ぎ回るのはやめてくれ。奴は池田さんの詳細を知りすぎている。加藤君に毒を見せたくないのであれば、君が加藤君に言って聞かせてくれ。
Kudo-kun cared for Kato-kun like a little brother. I want him to make the wisest decision for him. It's pretty much telling him that prevention is better than cure. Forewarned is forearmed. I left it up to Kudo-kun to believe it or
わ
not.
かった。
Wakata. Kudo-kun turned away from me. He grabbed the blue umbrella leaning against the wall and handed it to me.
持っていけ。
Motteke!
恩に着るぞ。
He was truly a considerate guy. He grew up good. I opened the sky blue umbrella and left Sunset though. When I arrived at the Umebachi though, I was lying flat on the floor facing a manuscript, as usual. How many times I had seen this scene? Same. How many times I would read this? I touched me without even hearing his voice, and certainly without speaking to him. I grabbed my glasses from the remaining clothing. Flicked the water off before putting them on.
伊達メガネと分かった今でもなんだか凛々しく見えますね。玉森さん。
Tanamari-san! The frogman tried to flatter me as he shook my hand. I went upstairs without giving him a single glance. Put a sheet on paper on my grilled fish that was staring at the gates of hell. Gently brought my hands together. pulled out a dust-covered bag and stuffed my manuscript paper and costly packaging.
何してるんですか？
I'm gonna carry my go board around, of course. I have to end my relationship with this Daruma too. Guess that's it then. I drape a black coat over my arm and try to leave the room.
どけ、カエル男。
どきません。どうして僕を無視するんですか？
Frogman shook his head as he was to say he couldn't understand.
言ったじゃないですか。僕はあなたをお守りしたいだけだって。僕はあなたの幻想です。あなたの分身みたいなもんです。でも僕には確かに自我があるんです。意志があるんです。無視されたら僕また消えちゃいます。
消えてくれ。私はもう自分の幻覚を操りきれない。
地下室の怪人のことですね。じゃあ僕が怪人を止めてみせます。
無駄だ。あの親父にも止められなかった幻覚だぞ。
でも
Blew out a puff of air. The frogman twisted his body and avoided the breeze. Either way, he ended up making some space, so I went downstairs. Grabbed some manuscript paper and a pen from the shelf next to the register and stuffed them in my bag.
まるで夜逃げみたいだ。
Pick up the half-written manuscript I had left behind and shove it in my bag too. It's going to lay all my stories to rest.
すべての幻想を消せば怪人も消えると思っているんですね。わかりました。成功することを祈ってます。
The frogman turned to dust and vanished, seeing the tears soak into the floor, leaving behind a dark spot. Even then, immediately dried, he left his world without a trace. Took out a blank manuscript page and wrote "Thank you for everything." I left it for the shopkeeper. There's a saying, "Man away from home has no need for shame." But no matter how foolish things you do, you're allowed to do anything you want as long as you have a destination. Life is a journey. That's why I didn't feel at least bit of guilty leaving my food on unwashed for an entire month I had stayed in my batshet. Or leaving my dying goldfish. Say it again. I mean, away from home has no need for shame. I wasn't saying it I was being shameless, but I was saying pretend to be more than anything other. Then I lost my destination. Even opening my umbrella seems like a chore. So we did our Suido bridge station overpass for the rain to stop. Eventually, even standing became awful, so I ended up sitting after barely 5 minutes. I had to find a place to get rid of my manuscript, but I couldn't find the strength to stand. A yawn and a bit of my soul escaped from my mouth, just to fly high into the sky. I was feeling sluggish, because I hadn't slept yesterday or today. I buried my face in my knees and coughed. From behind closed eyelids, I thought about ways to dispose of my manuscript. Throwing my bag off Slido Bridge would probably be the easiest way to get rid of them. But I didn't have tens or hundreds of manuscript pages. I had thousands. Even my manuscript had soul. In the same way, these dolls need a burial service. I couldn't let go of them so easily. When I lifted my head, it was already dark outside. The gas lamps coloring the rain. According to the station clock, it was past 6. On top of not being able to get any sleep, I was unable to think of a way to dispose of my manuscript, so it felt like I had wasted my time. Salaryman came bursting out from the ticket gate. One salaryman came out and stopped in front of me. He looked up at the sky, exuding frustration. Eventually, the man ran into the wind and rain. The cigarette butt fell after he left. I picked it up. As soon as I seemed like was about to go out, the wind picked up. Cigarette revived. Feeling as though a tiny laugh had been safe, I scoffed. Fire was something humanity could control. Just one match, a house could be set on fire. Left alone, he could burn down a forest. If you were told to stand defenseless against a burning flame, you would probably find it stronger than a bear. I'll cremate my manuscript, clench a cigarette butt in my canines so it wouldn't touch my lips, and pulled my back towards me with my now free hands. I bundled up the scattered manuscript and finished the preparation of my pyre. Right on top was the fragment manuscript I had written. There was a need to be frightened. Weren't killing indirectly and killing directly the same thing? I pressed the cigarette fire, residing the tip of the cigarette right into the middle of the manuscript. It slowly burned and spread as smoke began to rise. I saw a small flame. I let go of the cigarette. People were coming in and going like normal right next to me while I was doing something like this. From a stranger point of view, I probably don't look like anything other than a homeless man burning my things. I doubt that anyone would think I was burning the dreams, hopes, and fantastical mysteries I had accumulated over the last 2 years. What would I do now once I'm done burning them? I never wanted to go back to the country. Guess I could go to the Izumi residence, apologize to Madam, beg her to let me to stay. Even the garden was fine. Felt like I could easily shed some tears right now. Suddenly, a man ran right by me. He ran by so fast I was almost knocked on my ass. He began to beat the flames with the coat he'd taken off. Is it Minakami? He covered it with his black coat and flame gradually died down. It was Hakase-kun. Oh! He continued to brush away the twisting flames as best as he could. Felt the image of his figure from behind tackling the flames really brave and awe-inspiring. Once he was done putting out the fire, he turned on as he adjusted his eye patch, which had shifted. He grabbed me by the shoulder. As his left eye raised over me, making sure I wasn't injured. He bit his lip like he wanted to say something, but quietly hung his head.
僕のことわかりますか？
梅鉢堂の常連さん。
君は梅鉢堂の店員さんですよね。
いえ、私はもう。
He shook my shoulders hard.
無関係に思わないでください。玉森くんですよね。君の原稿にそう書いてありましたから。ごめんなさい、気持ち悪くて。僕は氷川と申します。
氷川さん。
He let out a slight smile slip.
博士と呼んでくださいますか？
博士。
Hakase-kun stood up and held out his hand out to me. As soon as I grabbed it, he pulled me up with a surprising strength. Ooh. Then the look on Professor's face turned to shock as he picked up the burnt manuscript.
これは一体どういうことなんですか？
ああ、邪魔になったので捨てたんです。
邪魔になったって。それにしてもどうしてこんなところで。もらっていいですか？
どうぞ。ちり紙にでも使ってください。
そんな恐れ多いこと。ああ
There must have been some embers left on them. Smoke started to rise from Hakase-kun's chest. He held the manuscript away from himself, but it seemed like he was going to let them go. I grabbed them for him and threw it back into the nearby Kanda River from Suido Bridge. I should have done this in the first place. Hakase-kun came after me. He tilted his own umbrella towards me and handed me the blue paper one.
お店やめちゃうんですか？すみません。レジの書き置き勝手に読んでしまいました。
ええ。
次の働き先は？
決まっていません。
それは困ります。
どうしてあなたが困るんです？
会えなくなってしまうではありませんか。
Hakase-kun didn't know what kind of person I was. I moved away from him and opened my own umbrella.
ご縁があればまたいつか。
待ってください。これからお時間あったりしませんか？よかったら一緒に夕食でもどうですか？
Felt like a kid being offered slices of sweet bean jelly. I was grateful, but once I realized it was Hakase-kun trying to coax me, it felt awkward.
遠慮しておきます。
そうですよね。突然気持ち悪いですよね、こんなこと。
Hakase-kun stretched the patch over his right eye as he smiled sadly. He took out a white scrap of paper from his breast pocket.
これ、僕の住所と電話の番号です。何か困ったことがあれば、いつでもご相談ください。それと、新しい仕事先が決まったら、お教えいただけると。
どうしてです？
どうしてです？
会いに行きますから、どこへでも。
Oh god, this man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have issues. I have issues. But man, I love this man. His gaze was sincere. He didn't know anything about me, yet he could say those loving things without no problem. He'd only seen one side of me and wanted to know everything. If Hakase could know what I was really like, then I would probably dim and tell how pathetic I was.
一つ質問してもいいですか？
はい、何なりと。
私があなたを嫌いと言ったらどう思われますか？嫌いだと言ったら。
それって僕のことがすでに嫌いということですか？
はい。
はい。
それは困ります。すみません。どういたしましょう。
Even though I hadn't given him a clear reason as to why I hated him, Hakase-kun apologized unconditionally.
じゃあ2つ目の質問いいですか？
ええ。
もし私が風呂も飯も睡眠もろくに取れずひもじい状態にいると知ったらどうしますか？
What should you do if you don't want me to hate you? You could probably guess the answer I was implying.
僕の家にお招きします。
I know Hakase-kun wasn't a bad person. I also knew I wasn't a good person he deserved. So I figured I'd totally fool him. When I gave him a grin, a black car came speeding down the Hakusan street. It was a thin Lizzie, Hakase-kun's car. When she stopped right next to us, the door opened on its own.
こちらは僕の車です。どうぞお乗りください。
Oh god, you're gonna get shackled and never left.
失礼します。
Hitotsurugi-san was already inside, of course. The look she gave me felt like a glare, which must have been the cause of the guilt I was feeling about her master. It wasn't like I was trying to take advantage of his kindness or anything.
お初にお目にかかります。私、氷川家女中の一剣と申します。
ど
どう？
何か？
いや。
The car started to move. I felt relief leaving Jinbo Cho. But it was disrupted by a feeling of unease. I just curled myself up and watched the dark capital.
好きなお酒はありますか？
匂いを嗅いだだけでもふらつくのであまり好きではありません。
それは残念です。僕は氷川酒造13代目杜氏という肩書きも持っていまして、君にも僕の酒をご賞味いただきたかったのですが、本当に残念だ。
お構いなく。
でもせっかくいらっしゃるのに、一剣も何か知恵をくれ。
隅田川の生水はいかがでしょう？
明暗だ。
いらないです。腹が壊れます。
何もふざけているわけじゃないですよ、玉森くん。先日僕は特殊なろ過装置を開発しまして、それにかけるとどんなおでだろうと綺麗で美味しいお水に生まれ変わるんです。
I wish you'd donate amazing things like this to the Salvation Army or something and benefit society. I was going to tell him bitterly, but then I remembered Hakase-kun and I weren't that well acquainted yet. I suddenly ignored his long-winded explanation the rest of the way. I got out in front of a huge mansion, Jesus. Blood shot out and pushed through the dark rainy sky. Even Ikeda Manor, which was the house of a nobleman, couldn't compare to the splendor of this place. No sooner had he pressed the doorbell than a woman emerged from the distant entrance.
お帰りなさいませ。
Was a maid with a dark circle under her eyes. She looked a lot like Hitotsurugi-san. They must have been twins. As soon as she saw me, a surprisingly gentle smile came to her face.
お初にお目にかかります。ようこそお越しくださいました。
With an alluring, gentle voice, she invited us into the mansion. She then led us to a large foyer with a grand staircase. There was just a large paper lantern above. It's pretty positive that not even Takarazuka W had a stage like this.
お風呂とお食事どちらにしますか
Or
それとも
watashi?
風呂。
それじゃあサザン玉森くんを風呂場まで案内して差し上げて
かしこまりました。
僕は食事の手配をしてきますくつろいでいってくださいね
I climbed up the stairs with the maid. When I happened to turn around, Akase-kun was still smiling at me, so I bowed my head slightly. The unusually hallway, which looked like a Western mansion and a Japanese castle put together, went on and on. The designs on the wall were creepy, almost making me want to walk with my eyes closed.
私、サザンと申します。あれは姉の一つるに。共に氷川家に仕えて60年となります。以後お見知りおきよ。
60 years? Did they count in the years their parents had worked here?
お坊ちゃまとはどの部署でお知り合いに
いえ、私たちは仕事の関係ではなく。
I was going to say he was a regular customer of my shop, but remember I was no longer an employee at the Meibachido. In that case, what exactly did that make Hakase and I?
友達です。
ま
1ヶ月前に知り合ったばかりですが。
あ、それでは発展途上中ということですね。
発展？
嬉しいわ。本当に嬉しい。
Sazan-san whispered, moved to tears. She probably wasn't that much older than Hakase-kun, but she loved him like a mother. The same could be said for Hitatsuruki-san. Her scrutiny gaze towards me must have been her motherly affection for Hakase-kun. If she found out I was pretending to be his friend because I wanted a place to stay, she'd probably tear me limb from limb. I desperately kept that in mind, so I wouldn't mention that, no matter what happened. After that, we rode the elevator and headed to the 4th floor. What's different from the other floors, there was a huge door right in front of us. Whoa, what the F? As soon as we went through it, we were surrounded by pure white steam. Sazan-san pulled the cord and a window opened, and a cloud dispersing into the sky. It was a large dome-shaped bath, but could probably accommodate 50 people. The dark rainy sky could be seen through the glass panel in the middle of the ceiling. It was probably set up like that to admire the Milky Way during the summer. There were steps at my feet. I went down one step, I could touch the hot water overflowing the bathtub. I took off my shoes and rolled up my hakama, soaked my feet into the shallow hot water. I must naturally form a smile with my eyes sparkled. Heavenly! Kawase insulted me by calling me dirty, filthy, nasty, and the like. I actually like large baths, and I hated when my room was messy or getting messy. I would have splashed around like a kid, but Sazan-san was behind me. Unable to let out how I felt, I forced in place like some weirdo.
お召し物をお預かりします。
脱衣所はどこに？
この場でどうぞ。
え、
どうぞ。
We both remained silent for a while, and Sazan-san gasped and turned around.
私は後ろを向いておりますから、どうぞこの後ろ手にお召し物をお渡しください。
I untied the strings and removed my hakama, then put my underclothes inside, pulled them up, and handed her my bottoms first. She took them with her right hand and held them against her chest so she wouldn't drop them.
はい、確かに。
I pulled up my dress shirt and coat and stuffed my wallet and glasses inside. Placed me to her left hand was dressed completely naked at last. I never thought of being buck naked in front of, well, right behind a
湯
lady.
から上がりましたら、ここの布をお使いください。足をお拭きになったら、昇降機に乗りて3階にお越しください。
服は
3階にご用意しております。それでは、ごゆるりと。
In the end, Sazan-san looked at me and bowed. I immediately shut my legs and hid my privates. She must have done it out of reflex, so Sazan-san just smiled apologetically and quietly closed the door. What's wrong with that woman? Anyway, now that I was alone, I unclenched my thighs and headed for what looked like the bathing area. There was a bath stool, but no bucket, and I couldn't find any soap. For now, I sat down and spotted the word push in front of me. When I suddenly pushed it with my finger, a thin stream of water came down from the shower head above. I let out startled yelp and looked for the word stop, but I couldn't find it anywhere. When I pressed it repeatedly, I thought it stopped, but then something like a bird shit straight out of the middle of the shower head. When I ran my nose through my hair and picked it out, slick bubbles foamed up. Must have been soap. No idea what was going on anymore, so I scrubbed my head to wash my hair. I had nothing but shock since coming to this mansion. I never heard of hot water coming up from shower heads or liquid soap before this. It was like they were from the future. The bathtub was constructed to be deeper towards the center. Since I was a very good swimmer, I stood by the edge and hummed towards the dome ceiling.
玉森くん、湯加減はいかがですか？電声管よりお声掛けしています。そちらの音声が聞こえないのが残念ですが。
I want to ask why a weirdo like him had to design it that way in the first
お
place.
食事の用意ができたことをお知らせします。それでは。
坊ちゃま。
ああ、一剣かい。
Professor's tone was more casual than usual. Must have forgotten to close the metal cap.
ろ過装置の調子が悪いございます。
あれ、それは困ったね。
I love the echo.
玉森様には隅田川の水をそのままお出ししようかと思うのですが、構いませんか？
え？何言ってるんだい？それじゃあ玉森くんが腹を下してしまうよ。
構いません。
構うよ。君が構わなくても僕が構うよ。ああ、君はそんなに玉森くんが嫌いかい？
私はただ坊ちゃまが心配なのでございます。情などを移されては。
一剣、僕はもう子供じゃないんだ。友達くらい自分で選べるよ。けど心配かけてすまないね。富士の氷があったろ。玉森くんにはあれを溶かしてお出しして。
かしこまりました。
Professor's footsteps grew distant. On the other hand, Hitsuruki-san and the noticeably high-pitched sound of her shoes came closer. She then slammed the metal cap shut as if she were letting out her frustration. I'd been looking up indifferently the whole time. I couldn't drain the bath, so I just jumped out. Thought I maybe shouldn't go just in towel, but I valued my life over my shame. Hitsuruki-san's hatred for me went beyond simple dislike. Some of that wasn't something Hakase-kun could keep in check. Though I tried escaping to the second floor, the elevator stopped on third. The one waiting for me behind the lattice was none other than Hitatsurugi-san.
お召し物はこちらにご用意しております。お降りください。
I got off and now the empty elevator went down to the second floor. Hitatsurugi-san watched it silently. Turned her gold gaze towards me. Still silent, she led me to the parlor next door. My clothes were on the table. Hitatsurugi-san pulled out my undergarments and stood in front of me.
両手を上げてください。
Her tone seems to be saying, "You better erase your fucking hands." Once I timidly done so, she snatched a towel wrap around my waist. I was butt naked. How shameful. Indifferent to my goods, Hitatsurugi-san wrapped my undergarments around my waist. Guess I should have been happy with my new social standing right now.
やっぱり自分で来ます。
左腕をお出しになってください。
She even put on my dress shirt. Oddly enough, it had the same smell as Hakase-kun.
洗濯しておきました。
ありがとうございます。
She suddenly brought her face closer and sniffed along my neck. And she let out a cold sigh by my ear.
あなたからも刺繍が消えたようで何よりです。車内では鼻が曲がりそうでしたから。
博士は犬のしつけを知らんようだな。それとも血統が悪いのか？
Even though I was trying to act big on the inside, I felt like my legs were going to give out any minute. She tied the strings on my hakama so tight I could barely breathe. Once she placed my glasses on my face, she was done dressing me.
それでは食堂にご案内します。ついていらして。
Felt like I had gained a mother-in-law without getting married. She turned down countless corners. Led me to a dimly dining room. Akase-kun was sitting at the end of the long table, wringing his hands. He smiled in relief as soon as he saw me. I was seated next to him. Before long, Sasan-san came out and set down some wine glasses.
その水は富士の氷結で取れた氷を溶かしたものです。放映以前の爆発によってできた氷結らしく、買い取るのに高くつきました。
I grabbed the wine glass by the stem and tried to swirl it
鉱
around.
石性の終わり頃、つまり1万年前の雨水ですが、体に害はありません。むしろ何にも怪我されていない綺麗な水ですよ。
Put my nose into the glass and sniffed it first. There was no smell. Brought the glass to my lips and stuck my tongue in. There was no taste. The water went down smooth and had no bite to it. Just cooled my stomach.
なるほど。高純度ですね。
わかりますか？海の向こう側にある深い味わいが。
なんとなく。
氷川家はこういった純度の高い水で酒造りをしているんです。米の味と香りを伝えるには、まず脇役に主張があってはいけませんから。
Akase-kun said that as he picked up his own wine glass and swirled it around.
お酒は結局米なんです。なので白米のお供になる料理とはおのずと相性が良くなります。
へえ。
The sizzling sound from behind the door was coming closer. As soon as the door burst open, the room was filled with the sweet scent of beef and butter. Sozan-san placed a piping hot iron plate in front of me. Grabbed the white cloth I had in my lap and tied it snugly around my neck.
これは前掛けです。
She giggled and smiled. She was slowly treating me like a child, but after Tetsurugi-san's abuse, there was a part of me who was happy to be spoiled like this.
子牛のステーキです。前菜から順々にと思ったのですが、お腹が空いていると伺ったので、メインディッシュからお出ししました。
I cut the meat in half and stuffed it in my mouth. It's moist and juices overflow with every bite. It was like a cough was running around in my mouth. Akase-kun also had his mouth stuffed and was chewing as he smiled happily.
お酒が飲みたくなったらいつでも言ってくださいね。悪酔いのしない方法をお教えします。
十分楽しめていますので遠慮します。
なんて嬉しいことを。
The door suddenly opened. Sasan-san approached Akase-kun with a hurried step and whispered something softly in his ear. Akase-kun looked somewhat surprised and moved away from her, tilted his head.
野沢様？野沢様って一体誰だい？
ともかくお電話に出ればすぐわかるかと。
すみません、玉森くん。ちょっと席を外します。
Akase-kun and Sasan-san ran off, leaving only the sound of my eating. The dining room was still pretty creepy. There were eye-like patterns painted all around, giving me a feeling of being watched.
これは蛇の目模様というのです。
Tetsurugi-san came out from behind me, then walked around to Akase-kun's seat. She filled his empty glass with Japanese sake as she muttered coldly.
食わせ者を脅かすための目です。
にゃ。
She placed her hands on the backrest of his chair, then turned her lowered eye towards me. I could no longer swallow and kept on chewing the now tasteless meat. Eventually, I lost my appetite and set my knife and fork down on the table.
川屋はどちらに？
ご案内します。
一人で大丈夫です。お構いなく。
She looked at me with suspicion.
扉を左に出て、突き当たりを左。さらに突き当たりを左に曲がり、すぐ右手に設置はございます。
I don't remember that at all. I couldn't remember that at all. I was afraid to ask her for a second time, so I left the dining room still unsure. This mansion was creepy as usual. I ran out because I didn't want to be alone with her. Now I wasn't sure which was worse. That being said, I couldn't do anything suspicious like turning back, so not knowing what to do with myself, I decided to walk around aimlessly. I kept turning the same direction at the end of each hall. Probably end up to circle around and get back. But wait. It'd be smart to use this chance to escape. No one was watching me right now. I spun around and headed for the elevator. Hakase-kun was alright, but I couldn't stand being around that maid for very long. That in mind, I took the elevator down. I couldn't find the exit. Didn't want to think that I was lost. Crossed my arms and strutted through this maze with an air of confidence. Suddenly I spotted an unusual room without a door. Passed by it at first, but it pulled my curiosity and I was standing in front of it once again. Oh great, it's this room. There was a goldfish watering can nestled in each square shelves. It was so tacky, it was almost artistic. Even though I was worried about being seen, I couldn't keep myself from entering the room and reach for a goldfish on one of the shelves. They were definitely the goldfish watering cans Takase-kun had given me. They were just pink goldfish like the one he had given me, but all kinds. Blue, white, black. There were even unusual ones with uncomplicated shapes like ranchu and oranda goldfish. He was pointlessly obsessed.
よかったら一匹もらってやってくれませんか?
God, it scared me. Takase-kun was standing right behind me. How long had he been there?
これは友情の証としてお配りしているんです。どうぞ、お好きな金魚をお選びください。
お好きな金魚と言われても。
ああ、そうですよね。これだけいたら迷ってしまいますよね。
Takase-kun looked around flustered. Then visually comparing a few goldfish, he came up to me again and pointed at the one in my hand.
この金魚は100匹のうち3番目に作った金魚なんです。よかったらこの子を受け取ってやってください。
Unable to bluntly refuse like the other times, I stuffed it in my pocket.
でも気持ち悪いですよね、こんなの。子供でもあるまいし、友情の証とかなんだとか言って物を押し付けるなんて。
そうですね。
そうですよね。というか、どうしてここに?
Element. Of course, you'd be surprised to find me here when I was supposed to be in the dining room on the third floor. When I tried to choose the right words, I heard different footsteps approaching.
私が2階の接近に案内してしまったのです。
一剣。
Takase-kun looked at her sadly. I got between them and cut off the awkward mood.
今日は風呂と食事をありがとうございました。それで私は
野沢様より何用でございましたか?
Why was she so blatantly hostile towards me?
ああ、電話は花沢くんからだったよ。あ、花沢くんというのは僕の親友でして、すごく頼りになるお方なんです。いや、悪い人ではないんです。無口で不愛想で、見た目はちょっと怖い方ですが、飾り気がないだけで本当は心優しく。
だから何なんですか?
I had a bad feeling.
と
His left eye began to wander as he pressed against his right.
彼が君に会いたいと。
え?
ごめんなさい。君が来ていることがバレてしまって。あれ、バレるっていうのもなんだかおかしな言い方ですね。
何と話したのですか?
話してはいません。
Takase-kun covered his blushing cheeks with his hands. Glanced back at me a few times as he sighed and mumbled.
嬉しそうな声をしていると言い当てられてしまって。その相手に興味があると。
There was only one way to lure Hanazawa out in the middle of the night.
彼に私の名前は伝えましたか?
いいえ。
Why would someone go out of their way just to see some friend's face? Takase-kun must have told him something.
正直に話してください。何を企んでいるんですか? 返答次第では帰らせてもらいます。
企んでなどいません。
貴様、ただ風呂とただ飯にありついておきながら、なんという方言!
She pulled out a knife of all things. The way she grabbed it between her fingers in midair when it fell from her sleeve showed the true mastery of her skill.
一剣!
Itatsurugi-san's shoulder fell when Takase-kun restrained her. Itatsurugi-san, Itatsurugi. There is no longer any need for formalities with this demon.
すみません、玉森くん。こうなったのは僕の責任です。ですから、正直に話します。実は、今夜は、
Did I like you? I guess he gets eyes dart back and forth. Then he looked back at me and confidently yelled.
好きな人が来ているとしまったのです。
Oh god, no. Oh god, no. He's so cute, I can't. What?
ですから好きな人が来ていて、今夜は宴の気分だと。
やっぱり今日は帰ります。
安心してください。彼に君を合わせる気はありません。
そういう問題じゃないんですよ。
Your crush? What? What were you expecting us to become? We needed to take a bath and get something to eat, so I probably sucked up all the favors I could. When I tried to leave the room, Hakase couldn't use his whole body to block the door.
だから君は先に寝室で休んでいてください。さっきも話しましたが、花沢くんは決して悪い方じゃありません。ですが、君と僕との関係はまだ誰にも邪魔されたくない。
I love this man! Oh god, I love this man! His voice and gaze were both sincere. It looked as if he were begging me to save him. There wasn't an exaggeration. It looked like I wouldn't be able to understand Hakase-kun after all. No doubt, I left before his strange sentiments could rub off on me and the hunter could become the hunted. He immediately circled around to block me. Perhaps aware he was acting irrational, he wouldn't look at me in the eye as he continued speaking.
玉森くん、少しだけ僕の身の上話を聞いてくれませんか？
I already knew what he was going to say after that. I remained silent, figuring I'd wait for him to calm down.
僕は浅草のとある酒造の息子なんです。人よりちょっと裕福で、お金だけはいつも持っていました。ある日、いつも通り吾妻橋から隅田川を眺めていたら、
A vagrant came up to me. What happened to your eye? I popped down the river. Is that why you're searching the water? It's dangerous, young man. Still, I have to look for it. You won't find it. See? Look, your eye is right here. The figure showed me his clenched fist. He came down from the railing and ran to open his hand, but there was nothing in it. The man smiled and grasped my hand as we crossed Asuma Bridge together. Oji-san? Oji-san? Why are you so dirty? Well, that's just how I am. I haven't bathed in a while. I'll give you money. It's your precious money. I won't take a single cent. But I feel bad for you. You're a good kid. When I handed him all the money I had, the man responded with a soft sigh. In that case, I'll grant you one wish. My eyes are bad, so I can't read books. I see. So please, tell me a story.
そうして語ってくれたのは、地下室に住む怪人の話でした。子供に聞かせるにはあまりにも怪奇的なお話でしたが、僕はそれ以来、怪奇小説、怪奇映画、怪奇談に陶酔し、今に至るのです。あの時出会ったおじさんはきっと怪奇作家。あの人の作品を探すために、僕は古今東西の本屋を巡り歩いていました。
This time I feel like he had been happy to tell me this story, but now he was tinged with indescribable melancholy.
でも結局、あの人は見つけられなかった。黒岩瑠衣子、押川俊郎、夢の旧作。僕の大好きな作家です。でも、あの人にはかなわない。そこで僕は君に出会った。
Stumbled towards me and took both of my hands.
君とあの人はよく似ています。もちろん容姿とか声とかの話ではなく、もっと根幹部分の話です。おかしな話でしょ。
Probably he met Tamamori, the old Tamamori, right?
笑って
The
ください。
shopkeeper.
僕をおかしな人間だと認めてください。それでもどうか受け入れてくださいませんか？僕と付き合ってください。
That fast, huh?
友達として。
おお、
Oh. What was it getting so worked up for? He suddenly shook Professor's hands off.
つまり あなたはお目目がどうしたとかいう親父に私を重ねていると。
はい、
そいつと思考的禁煙の私が好きだと。
そういうことです。
I know why he liked me, but I couldn't understand it. Takase-kun was a lonely man. I was a lonely man too, so I guess I only attracted those kind of people. With Takase around, my own worth would be clear whether I wanted to be or not. Same time, I had a feeling I now know exactly why I could never come to love Takase-kun. Jane. I abruptly ended our conversation and slipped past him.
待ってください。あ
I still couldn't understand the layout of this mansion, but I figured if I walk around a while, I'd make it out somehow. It's kind of depressing. Quick in my pace, so I wouldn't think about Hakase-kun's sad face. Faint footsteps were closing in on me from behind. Son pulled up next to me with a manner that almost didn't seem meant for me.
坊ちゃまに恥をかかせましたね。ただでは返しませんことよ。
Hitatsuri's anger, rage, frustration were acutely becoming more intense. The fear I felt made me run as fast as I could. It only took a few seconds for my breathing to grow heavy and my chest to begin to heave on its own. Despite how noisy my own heart was, the sound of Hitatsuri's steps were awfully loud in my ears. The knife cut the hem of my hakama. She seemed to be aiming for my feet. But thanks to my uncapped hem, she couldn't see where my feet were stepping. Hakama were originally designed for fighting, but I was probably the only one during this peaceful Taisho era using them for actual combat. As soon as I turned the corner, a knife pierced the wall behind me. She was aiming for my head this time. There was no hesitation in her throw either. The clear lust for blood she was exuding was enough to perk up even someone as sluggish as me. I threw open a especially large door and came out of the foyer. Ran down the grand staircase, but halfway down a knife grazed my foot. My feet slipped and I tumbled down the stairs. I fell face down to the floor, then jumped to my feet from the pain of being cut. When I turned around, Tatsurugi was coming down at one step at a time.
坊ちゃまはおかわいそうな子でございます。まぶたの裏の幻想回帰に取りつかれ、現実にまで幻の男を追っている。おかげでご友人に恵まれず、集まるのは金の匂いを嗅ぎつけた悪い虫ばかり。
私はそんなつもりじゃ。
Hitatsurugi was finally understanding the same ground as me. She stopped right in front of me and toyed with a single knife between her fingertips.
あなたはさらにたちの悪い虫。
虫。
あなたは坊ちゃまの幻想に入り込むことができる。純粋な坊ちゃまを洗脳することも容易でございましょう。桜の下に埋めて差し上げます。春には真っ赤な花となり、私たちを喜ばせて。
この変態一家が。
そうです。言うなればこれは坊ちゃまに対する母心。
She didn't seem to take my words as an insult. With a grin, Hitatsurugi aimed the knife at me. I really had no luck with the moment at all. An understanding similar to resignation rolled up inside of me before regret. Even though the energy making me run all this time was coming from the desire to live, I felt this awful contradiction. I should just void my bowels and die already. Thinking that all I could do was keep struggling like this until I was on the verge of death meant I was quite the thrill seeker. When I scoffed at myself, Hitatsurugi unexpectedly smiled back at me.
さようなら、玉森様。
The tip of the knife shone orange. The moment the light blinded me, something came crashing through the window. A black shadow tumbled to the floor. He stood as he were being pulled up by the thread. Before us was a giant over 6 feet tall. The man in no mask. His dilated pupils were resting on Hitatsurugi. Sensing a clear bloodlust coming from the man, Hitatsurugi unconsciously stepped back. She turned a sharp glare towards me. She lowered her right hand once more. The moment the knife was about to leave it, the man ran up to her and backhanded her on the side of the face. Hitatsurugi must have also already sensed that the man was the Grim Reaper. She moved her head way slightly. The force of his fist was only getting her cheek. Even so unable to disperse the blow, she went flying into the distance. She immediately took the defensive and stood up, her hazy gaze facing us. Her cheek was bright red. It was her blood oozing from her left ear, which had received the blow from his fist first.
貴様、
何者だ。許さんぞ。
She ripped the hem of her skirt, exposing a pure white leg. There were several knives attached to a belt around her thigh, all of them sharpened to a point. Whoa, let's go! Hitatsurugi closed the roughly 10-step gap between them just in one. She jumped high above the man and threw the knives down on him like falling rain. I ran away. I skipped to the wall. Tried to stand up, but my legs gave up. Even walking was impossible. I frantically crawled along the wall and escaped through the front door. As soon as I grabbed the doorknob, strength finally returned to my limbs. I can't stay here any longer. The man Nomas was showered with knives. He didn't run or even step back. It was as though he was shaking off a few gems from his mantle after a storm had passed. It was seriously nothing to him. He pulled the knives from his body. Out of ammo, Hitatsurugi came at the man with her bare fist. He dodged her, then grabbed her under her arms. Still holding her arms, the man crushed her chest with his large feet. Her shoulder dislocated. Hitatsurugi wouldn't take her eye off him. The man punched her face again as he would distance her gaze. Hitatsurugi hit the wall. Her nursing cap fell off and blood dripped down her long hair. Yet the color of rage resided in her eye. Insane.
貴様、その男をかばい立てする気か。名を名乗れ。死ね。
Growing impatient, Hitatsurugi suddenly started to stretch at the back of her left hand. Hidden in her body was a knife that was closer to a sword. She threw the blood-soaked blade above the man's head. She was aiming for the rope holding the paper lantern. Losing its support, the lantern gently fell straight down. The man was still looking up blankly when he crushed under it without any resistance. Sparks spattered from the broken electric lights, and fire spread along the paper that formed the lantern. A black silhouette rose from the flames. We saw his face! He was searching for something with his hands. When he found a piece of his mask, he covered half of his face with one. The eyes I was able to catch a glimpse of belonged to a young man who still had his innocence. I feel so bad towards him. During the turmoil, Hitatsurugi had ripped one of her back of her right hand. She threw her last sword at the man in the fire. The man in Nomas reached for the sword. The blade pierced his hand and stopped inside it. It was a knee-jerk self-defense maneuver. He just wanted the sword. He pulled it out, tried to swing it around in the flames. The blood-soaked blade became even more red and sparkled like a gem in front of him. He threw it to Hitsurugi's stomach like it was a paper airplane. The flames went out and the area was shrouded in darkness. In the black there was the sound of one person falling. Some of the rain poured in from the broken window. Every so often lightning would flash into the room, oblivious to this awful scene. The smell of burning mixed with the smell of blood and guts spread through the room. I should have been running away. Should have been screaming. But my legs still wouldn't work. The man turned towards me. But when I saw him take a hesitant step back, the harsh reality intensified.
なぜ私をかばうのだ。なぜだ。答えろ。お前は私の幻覚なのか。答えろ。
The air shook. I could tell my words frightened him.
答えてくれ。
There were a cold click almost indistinguishable from the sound of thunder. The moment the next flash of lightning came to light the room, Hakase-kun was at the top of the stairs aiming a gun.
下がっていてください。今片付けますから。
博士。
With the same look as Hitatsurugi, he pulled the trigger. The gunshot was cut short and echoed with frustration he couldn't hide. That frustration was a sign that his shot wasn't effective. The gunshot stopped. Something heavy tumbled down the stairs. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to know. The lightning illuminated Hakase-kun's dead body. Then with the lightning lit up the area again. The man was standing right in front of me. Even after being shot in the shoulder, stomach, and chest, his expression hadn't changed. He looked down at me blankly, then went past me.
待て。川瀬のところへは行くな。行かないでくれ。頼む。
You're my hallucination.
私に従え。
The man ran away. He easily burst through the door I hadn't been able to open, and disappeared into the rainy night. Slanting rain sprayed against me. Salty ocean breeze cleared away the smell of blood. Why? Why me? Why had he tried to protect me? If he was my hallucination, why wouldn't he obey me? A black car stopped outside. A man and a woman got out and froze at the gate. Slowly stood up and opened it for them.
山森様
なぜお前が
Is Kawase dead? We just watched as Kawase was killed too.
玉森何があった
I don't want to hear her voice.
花沢
Spoke like I was pleading with him again. Sansa threw her umbrella aside and ran into the mansion. She immediately let out a scream when she saw the horrific sign before her, then collapsed on the spot. When Hanazawa tried to head into the mansion, I grabbed his arm.
屋敷には行くな川瀬のところへ私を池田隊に連れて行ってくれ
血の匂いがする屋敷を確認させろ
いいから私を連れて行け
He grabbed my hand and embraced me with one arm.
落ち着いたか川瀬がどうした
You lying bastard.
殺されてしまうお面の男に
But he didn't care about us at all.
言ってやろうその幻覚俺が叩き切ってやる
It had only been 3 times during the rainy season. But if I included our childhood, this would have been the 10th time that hearing those words had calmed me down, made me admire him even more. I already knew he was a heartless man. But there was a part of me that wanted to trust him and made me grip his clothes. Once we arrived at the Ikeda Manor, I grabbed his lamp and sword and got out of the car. The gate was open. When I tried to go in, Hanazawa grabbed my restless arm. He gently grabbed his sword from my hand.
これは俺が持つランプはお前が持っていてくれ
He opened the door slightly. There was already a miasma there that leaked out from my gap.
玉森これは
Dry black footprints went towards the parlor. Placed my own foot over those much too large footprint and was certain he wasn't my hallucination. I really was a foolish human being. It was way too late for me to realize that now. I knelt down by the fireplace. Half of Kawase's body was crammed into the earth. He was wearing his uniform, so he must have been attacked right after he got home. I had been relaxing around at the time.
どういうことだ玉森これは一体
I lifted Kawase's body and peeked into the fireplace. When I did, there was 2 small eyeballs in the darkness.
加藤君
He was there. He was holding to Kawase's body and wouldn't take my hand.
君がなぜここに
帝大生さん死んじゃった僕のことかばって
加藤君
He gently held out my hand, but he moved further back, still holding onto Kawase's body. He had streaks of tears on his face. He must have been like this for hours. His clothes were dyed red.
来なさい
Hanazawa came to my side and lifted up Kawase's body. Katogon swabbed like a snail whose shell had been stolen away. He embraced his small body with him, shed the tears I couldn't shed until now. It was my fault. I didn't express my apologies. There was no way I could heal his wound with just a sorry.
今日見たことは忘れなさい君は助けられたことだけ覚えておくんだ忘れなさい
I made him hold the lamp. Every time he loosened his grip, I forced it back to his hand. After repeating that a few times, the light lit up in his eyes. He finally looked at me.
行きなさい
Katogon ran away. Stood by the window and watched him until I could no longer see his light. I wasn't sure what had happened to him. He had come here to see Kawase. What had he asked him? What had he heard? What had he thought? Had he cried? I didn't want to know. When I turned around, Hanazawa was lying Kawase's body on the couch. He found his head and placed it on his shoulder, closed his eyelids. Hanazawa touched his cheek as he quietly muttered,
誰がやったんだ玉森知っているのだろう
知っ てどうするのだ?
Hanazawa fell silent. It seemed like he was trying to find out what I meant by that instead of looking for an answer. I knew I wouldn't get a serious answer from him. I walked past him and left the parlor.
どこへ行く?
He blocked my path. I didn't feel like telling him to move, so I pushed my way past him without saying anything. He finally grabbed me by the collar.
すまない。だが何としてでも話は聞かせてもらうぞ。
He didn't even think about saving Kawase, despite knowing who the murderer was.
善人ぶるのはもうやめろ!
Hanazawa's figure darkened with the lightning lit behind him from behind. We weren't on the same wavelength. There was a difference in knowledge between us. He knew about time travel, so he seemed to sense there was something strange about me.
俺とて好きでお前らとままごとをしていたわけではない。俺に善であれと言ったのは父だった。だが10年前、父は尽くした相手に殺された。お前らから離れたのは善人でいる理由がなくなったからだ。
He had nurtured the seed Hanazawa had no longer needed, and had thrown out and had grown into a tree. I was aware of that, but I didn't want to hear it.
俺はお前らが大嫌いだった。
最低だな。だったら川瀬に近づいた意図は何だよ。だって池田さんを殺したのはお前だろ。
Kawase couldn't touch anyone. It's because of his germophobia, and some other kind of sickness of the mind. Hanazawa was reunited with Kawase 3 months ago, and 2 months ago, Ikeda-san went missing.
そうだ。人殺しと罵るか。
何のつもりだったんだ。
なんと答えてほしい。川瀬のためと言ってほしいのではないか。
That was exactly what I wanted. Why else would Hanazawa put Kawase in his step like this? Honestly, I couldn't care less what his motives were.
上辺だけを繕った関係がただただ気持ち悪かった。お前はなぜ奴のために泣ける?
Several people had said the same exact words to me before. But why did I need a reason? Do I need a reason to reach out to the people closest to me? I didn't have the energy right now to yell that at him. I'd finally laid my emotions bare.
川瀬を見殺しにしたのは初めてではない。これは償いだ。
It was a rainy day long ago. Kawase was taking the day off from school as usual. I was his neighbor, so I was bringing him some handouts. No one answered the door, so I snuck around the back, realized the storm shutter was open slightly. From that gap, I saw someone trying to kill Kawase. The murderer wasn't just trying to choke the life out of him. That was the moment I knew that my denying his nature, his personality, his freedom was enough of a sin. But as I was about to cry out, Kawase noticed me and gave me a smile. Even though he had been crying out of pain, I felt like he was severely wounded. He smiled at me, yet I couldn't help Kawase back then. I was scared and didn't tell anyone about it.
川瀬はかわいそうな男なのだ。
He had protected Kato-kun, but no one could protect Kawase's life. The man he admired was here, but he felt nothing for Kawase. What was most pathetic was that man someone like me was the only one who could protect him.
屈折しているな。
わかりきってるよ。
The reason there was a right hand to go with your left was simply so you could hold into someone else's left hand. And then my left hand could reach out to someone right beside me. But Kawase, Hanazawa, and I only had right hands. The only way we could hold on to each other was by clinging to someone's sleeve, hem, or sometimes their leg. It was overwhelmingly obvious that such a fragile relationship would fall apart after just one storm. I shoved Hanazawa's chest and ran past him, rushing out the front door, exposing myself to the pouring rain. I wouldn't rely on anyone else anymore. No, I couldn't rely on anyone else. You can't use that. You can't use what you don't have. I faced Kawase directly once more. I showed him I could hold into his right hand with my own. My determination was resolute. I brought my feet together and jumped into a puddle. Damn. I was on the streetcar again. The only passenger were me, Kawase, and a young mother and child to sit across from us. The child must have been around 2 or 3, but it was his first time in the streetcar, so he's making a lot of noise in his excitement. My grandfather had really hated children, so whenever I was noisy, he claimed I was possessed by a fox or snake just as loudly. Surprisingly, even though I was a form of the same bloodline, I didn't hate babies. So I gave him a wide smile when our eyes met, but he just spat at me and turned away. What was that for? The mother bowed her head towards me. She pulled out a den drum. Now, under the protection of the god of thunder, the child's smile returned. The drum suddenly slipped from his small fist. It bounced noisily against the floor and stopped with a thud in front of Kawase. Kawase cold gaze as he stared around the drum immediately froze everyone in the streetcar. The sensitive baby must have thought Kawase was a genuine god of thunder. He hit his belly button and started to cry. He picked up the drum in panic and beat against it enthusiastically. I showed it to him. The mother quickly thanked me and nodded her head, then got off the next stop. I tried to hold my tongue, but finally spoke.
その態度はないと思うぞ。
何が
何が
何がってな、拾ってやってもよかったんじゃないか？
触ったら汚れるでしょ
Actually, the handle had been sticky. I hesitantly stuck my right hand. I could smell the dry scent of
そん
saliva.
なに臭い
不思議だ。桜餅の匂いがするぞ。
鼻までバカなの
Slowly brought my fingers closer to Kawase's nose. He frowned, but when he actually sniffed them, his face relaxed. The whole Sakura mochi thing was a lie. It actually smelled really
許
bad.
容範囲だ
お前の鼻こそバカなんじゃ。
Cute. Ah, God. Okay. I think we have to end it there today. Oh god, my back hurts. I have a lot of chores to do. So thank you everyone for watching. I honestly don't know what to feel. I feel like every time we go back to the past and meet the same guy over and over, we just found out that they hated us. I think Hakase-kun's the only guy who was like genuinely kinda in love with us. Well, he's in love with the shopkeeper. But whatever, it's still me. Anyways. Oh god, I made this one extra long just because I may not upload next week, so hope that's enough for you guys. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. I'll probably stream this by next week or by next 2 weeks. I don't know, we'll see. But again, this was exciting, this was fun, I love it, I can't wait for the next one. I can't wait for the ending. I think obviously this Kawase's rude. But yeah, anyways, thank you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!